The year was 1837. A tall, thin man with a worn-out coat and a heart full of quiet determination walked into the small town of Springfield, Illinois. He carried a single suitcase, a few books, and a dream that no hardship could destroy. After years of failure, heartbreak, and loss, Abraham Lincoln was ready to begin again. He had no money, no powerful friends, and no grand plan. But what he did have was honesty, a deep sense of fairness, and the belief that truth, when spoken with courage, could move hearts. In Springfield, he began a new life as a lawyer. He didn't wear fancy clothes or use complicated words. He rode from town to town on horseback, his law books packed in a saddlebag, sleeping in small inns, eating simple food, and earning the respect of everyone he met. People began to notice that Lincoln was not like other lawyers. If his client was wrong, he would say so, even if it meant losing the case. Once, he returned a large fee to a man, saying, "You're in the wrong, and I can't defend what's not right." It was this kind of honesty that earned him the name Honest Abe. In dusty courtrooms and wooden taverns, Lincoln's voice began to rise. He spoke slowly, clearly, and with truth in every word. He didn't argue to win, he argued to make people think. His speeches were filled with simple wisdom, drawn not from books, but from life. And people listened. They saw in him not just a lawyer, but a man who believed in justice. While Lincoln built his reputation, the nation around him was changing. America was growing, but the cracks were widening. The question of slavery was dividing the country. Some believed it was necessary for progress, others saw it as a sin against humanity. Lincoln was not yet a famous man, but he was a thinking man. He read everything he could find, newspapers, debates, and scriptures, searching for answers. Deep inside, one thought began to grow stronger each day: if slavery is not wrong, then nothing is wrong. By the early 1840s, Lincoln stepped once again into politics. Older now, wiser, and steadier, he joined the Whig Party, a movement that believed in education, opportunity, and fairness. In 1846, he ran for Congress and won. For the first time, the poor boy from Kentucky, who once studied by firelight, now had a voice in the halls of power. In Washington, Lincoln did not fit in easily. He didn't chase money or titles. Instead, he stood for principle. When he opposed the Mexican-American War, calling it unjust, many turned against him. Newspapers mocked him, calling him weak and unpatriotic. His time in Congress ended after just one term. Defeated again, he returned to Springfield. But this time, failure didn't break him. It shaped him. He had seen how politics could twist truth, and he promised himself that if he ever rose again, it would be for something that mattered. At home, life went on. Mary Todd, his strong and intelligent wife, stood by him. Their small house was filled with the laughter and noise of their children. Lincoln worked hard to support them, traveling long weeks on the law circuit, earning what he could. When he was home, he would read bedtime stories, tell jokes, and dream aloud about a better future. Mary believed in him deeply. She often said, "Abe will be President of the United States someday." He laughed, but her faith planted a seed in his heart. As years passed, Lincoln focused on his law career, staying away from politics. But in 1854, a new law changed everything, the Kansas and Nebraska Act. It allowed slavery to spread into territories where it had once been banned. Lincoln could no longer remain silent. The quiet lawyer from Illinois became a man with a mission. He began to speak again, this time not in courtrooms, but before crowds. His speeches were not angry, they were honest. He spoke with the voice of reason, with the moral courage of a man who could no longer watch injustice grow. The nation cannot endure permanently. Half slave and half free, he said. His words echoed across Illinois and beyond. People who had never heard of Lincoln before were now drawn to him. They saw not a politician, but a leader who spoke for what was right. More invitations came. He traveled from town to town, delivering speeches that blended wisdom, compassion, and conviction. Farmers, workers, and families filled the halls to hear him. Even his opponents admitted that when Lincoln spoke, something in his voice reached beyond politics, it reached the soul. Soon, he found himself surrounded by others who shared his belief in freedom. Together, they helped form a new political movement, the Republican Party. It was built on the simple idea that slavery must not spread, that the rights of all people must be protected. Lincoln was not its founder, but he became its heart. He didn't shout or insult his rivals. He listened, reasoned, and persuaded. His power came not from anger, but from clarity. Each speech he gave, each person he convinced, moved the nation one step closer to change. By the late 1850s, the name Abraham Lincoln began to travel far beyond Illinois. His words reached cities he had never seen. Newspapers printed his speeches. People wrote letters about the tall lawyer with the gentle face and powerful words. The once failed businessman, the heartbroken lover, the small-town lawyer, had become a voice the nation could not ignore. On quiet nights, Lincoln would sit alone, reading by lamplight, thinking about what lay ahead. He knew the road would be hard. The country was tearing apart, and the storm was coming. But he also knew that everything he had suffered, every loss, every pain, every moment of doubt, had prepared him for this. He had found his purpose. And now, the voice that once echoed in small courtrooms was ready to speak to an entire nation. Because sometimes, it is not the loudest voices that change the world. It is the truest ones.